Hello, this is part 3 of the elevator tutorial. In the last video, we had set up 2 elevators that worked with each other. However, in this video, we're going to be expanding that and making it that you can go up to 6 different floors. And I'll demonstrate how yours will work by the end of this video. You're going to open the door here. Going to walk in. If I try to choose the floor I'm on, it'll prompt me that I can't and just close the door. But if I choose an actual floor that I can go to, like 2, it'll send me that floor. The doors will open. On top of that, by the end of this video, the issue from last time will be fixed, where if we leave that elevator's doors open and we move to a new elevator, then those doors will close. And you'll see it in the top left. I added some text that it found an open elevator and it closed it. Now if I jump out here, find the floor 2 is closed. We only have one door open at a time. And yeah. Alright, so first of all, we're going to go over here to our elevator system blueprint, and then we're going to open our elevator BP. One thing I forgot to do is we actually need to go down to our components here, and we need to go to the doors are closed variable, and we need to make sure that it isn't private. What I was working on last time is I accidentally had it checked as private, and it caused a bunch of issues, so just make sure that your doors are closed variable here is unchecked. Let's check the others as well and make sure they aren't private. We can organize and set things to private later, but right now we're going to be calling a lot of things. Next, what we're going to do, this is completely optional, but since we're drawing a line trace and we're going to have to hit several buttons close to each other, I like to add a widget with a dot so we can actually see where we're hitting. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Like I said, you don't have to. First of all, let's actually remove our line trace. So we're going to go to third person, blueprints, and open our player character. And under the line trace we created, we had our draw debug type as for duration. We're actually going to set it to none. So now a line will not visibly be drawn. There's still a line, but you won't be able to see it. Just makes things a little bit neater. So now we're going to go back to our elevator system. We're going to create a new folder and call it UI. We're going to open it. Under the user interface tab down here, we're going to select a widget blueprint. We're going to use user widget, and we're just going to name it bp_interact dot. We're going to open it up. Now in here, we're going to drag in a canvas panel. And then we're going to search for image and drag it under the canvas panel down here. And we're just going to name it img_dot. Organize. Then under anchors here, we're going to choose the center anchor. Put the position X and Y to 0. And do a size of 100 by 100. Now if you go to the link in the description of this video, you will find my Google Drive with everything you need to download for these tutorials. And under that one is actually a interact dot. So what you're going to do is you're going to import that image. I would import it in the same UI folder here. So go ahead and do that, or choose your own. Once it's imported, it should look like this. And now all you have to do is click on your dot, go to brush, drop down the brush, and under image, you should find interact dot. There we go. Now you can make this whatever size you'd like. However, I found that making the size 10 on the X and the Y, and then moving the position to -5 to center it on both the X and Y, tends to be pretty good for what I need. It's not the prettiest thing, but it works, and you can always go back and change it later. We're just going to compile and save here. Now whenever you press play, you're not going to see the dot at all, but that's because we actually need to add it to our viewport. So if we go back to our third person character, we should find event begin play in here. This is some code already written here. I'm going to leave it alone in case you need it. But over here at event begin play, we're going to find the end of the code. Right here at add mapping context, we're going to do create widget. And if you don't have all this here, that's completely fine. All you'd have to do is type event begin play, and then find event begin play and click on it and add it here. But in our case, we already have it taken up. So on the return value, we're going to do add to viewport. And then under which one we're adding, we're going to choose the class as the BP_interact dot. Now when we compile and save and play our game, we should now have a dot in the center of our screen here. And now we can actually see where we're pressing, and it's in the center here. Now what we're going to do, just to clean up and make it a little bit easier in the future for how this is going to work, we're going to go ahead and into our first elevator here, we're going to delete our button here, our floor button, leave everything else, and then we're going to completely delete the second elevator. Make sure that you get the floating buttons up top here, because we're going to be adding our own things later, and it just makes it a little bit easier right now. File and save all. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go into our elevator BP here, and we're going to make some changes just to make it a little bit easier. So first we're going to enter our viewport here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add here, and we're going to look up text render, and let's name it TXT_floor number, just so that once we've teleported to a new elevator, it's going to be a little bit easier to see which floor we are on. What we're going to do is we're going to bring it out here. Let's rotate it on the X 90. I like to put it up about here, and just know, don't line up the text like this. The T is wherever the number is going to be, so you want to center the T. It's like, for example, if I had it all the way over here, it would say 2 all the way on the left side, but if we move the T all the way over here, then the 2 would be in the center. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this. Let's bring the scale up to about 3. Go. Maybe it's a little bit too big. I'm sure it's fine. Now what we'll do is we'll uncheck the grid here, the grid snap for the movement, and we'll just move it until it's in the elevator and then a little bit out just so it barely pokes out. There we go. Make sure it's a little bit more centered. All right. Also, we want to make sure that the text is parented to the elevator here on the side. So if yours looks like this and it's not dropped under elevator, you're going to click it and drag it to elevator. File and save. Now what we're going to do, just to make sure this text actually works, is we're going to go into our event graph. And then under event begin play here, we can actually delete all of this here. Later, we're actually going to create a component where we can grab our elevator array. Like I said in a couple of videos back, it's a little tedious to have several blueprints all grabbing an array. So if you do it in a component and just grab it from the component, it's a lot easier. So we don't need that elevator array code anymore, at least in this blueprint. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab our text here and pull it out. Drag out of here and say set text. Now what we're going to do is we're going to drag it here. And remember, the index of our elevator is going to also be the floor number. So if we grab the index here and put it in the value, drag these two out. Now if we compile and save, let's make sure in our world here, the elevator has an index of 1. If it does, when we click play, it will say 1 above the elevator. So now back in our elevator BP, we're going to set up a new method of teleporting. What we did before is we had actually taken the player's position and said, okay, if you're between 10 and 100, you're on the first floor, and if you're on between 200 and 300, you're on the second floor. That's nice and all. However, we can make this a little bit more automated just by adding a teleport point in each elevator. So that way we can say, all right, well, if you're on this floor, then just teleport to this teleport point. So if we make one for each elevator, it'd make things a lot easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to add here, and we're actually going to add a cube. I like to reset the material over here on the right. I hate it just being white, so let's make it that. Now, if we go back into our world here, like we did before, if we grab our player character under third person blueprints character, we drag them in here, we can see they're always at a Z of 100 within the elevator. So what we need to do is we need to go in here and set the height here to 100 because that is the player offset. Now let's lock this and set the scale to something like 0.2. Now we don't want this appearing in here, so what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down. Right here we have collision. It says collision preset is block all dynamic. We're going to change that to no collision. Then what we're going to do is scroll down even further, and we will see visible here. We're going to uncheck that. Under advanced, let's just look through here and just make sure. Now, I don't think this matters since we already checked invisible, but just to be safe, let's uncheck visible and captures, real-time sky, ray tracing, main pass. Actually, no, keep main pass. Just uncheck these first three. Now compile and save. And now we have a point in our elevator that each player will travel to when going to one specific elevator. Now on top of that, to set up some code later, what we're going to do is we're also going to add a box collision. Just like before, you'll see it added under the cube. We're actually going to add the box into the elevator, and same for the cube here. So make sure they're all dropped down to the elevator. Now in this box here, it's going to spawn here. Let's just bring it up a little bit. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to scale it to the size of the inside of the elevator, because what we're going to be doing is with some code later, we're going to be figuring out if the player is in the elevator or not, if they are within this box. So I'm going to uncheck the scalar snap here just because it's a little bit easier. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it right until it clips into the wall like that. Do the same for the Y. Now on the Z, I'm going to do the same. Doesn't really matter too much. I like to have it covering the extent of the elevator, just makes it a little bit easier, but you don't have to make it the entire extent of the elevator. There we go. The Y here is there. That works. And if you are having a hard time seeing because it's snapping into your walls, you can go to lit over here at the top left and do wireframe. And actually see a little bit easier where your box is contained. That looks good. We can go back from wireframe to lit, file and save all. Compile. Now we should be good for the elevator setup here. Now within this elevator, what we actually have to do is set up our box to recognize if the player is in it, and this is just for some code later, but we're going to set it up now. Go into the event graph. And any time that you want to add code based off of a box collision, all you can do is right click on the box and do add event. In this case, we want add on component begin overlap and add on component end overlap. So just go ahead and click both of those. Now what we need to do is we need to check if it's the player that overlapped, because this will notify when any single component crosses it. So let's say a button moves somehow into the box, then immediately it's going to say a component hit it just because it's an actor. So how we can fix that is we can do a branch here. And on other actor, we can grab a equal. And then we're going to drag off of here and say get player character. Now what this is saying is the actor that crossed the box the player character? If it is, then we're going to actually do something. So now we're going to add another variable. We're going to say player in elevator, question mark. And now we're going to drag it out and we're going to set it. So now as you can see here, they began overlap, so they are in the elevator. However, we can copy and paste all of this, plug it in here, plug in other actor, and then uncheck because they have left the elevator. And while we're at it, we're going to go ahead and go to our elevator system blueprint, and we're just going to open our floor button. We're going to add the same number we did before. It's the exact same code. So like before, let's just go ahead and delete all this here. We don't need it right now. What we're going to do is add a text render, ext underscore floor number, make it attached to the button, drag it out, set text. Now what we have to do is we actually have to create a new variable. We're going to name it floor number. This one as well will be an integer, and it will also be instance editable. The reason for this is that an index will pair the button to an elevator, but it will not actually choose what floor it's sending you to. What we're going to do is we're going to drag out the floor number as the value, put it right here. File and save. Let's actually go into our world here and set up the elevator button. So let's go inside of our elevator. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add shapes cube. You don't have to do this, but I like to make a little elevator panel. Reset the material here so it's a grid, so it matches. We're just going to scale it down. Lower my camera speed because that's a little disorienting. Alright. They let it stick out a little bit, just snap into the wall here. There we go. Make sure it's not clipping on the other side. Yep. Move it over here. Now I'm just gonna make it a little bit taller. There we go. We can leave it like that. File and save all. And back in our button over here, go to our viewport, find that text render, and it's going to be in the wrong location. So what rotation? Yes, 90 on the Z for rotation, or you can just rotate it yourself on the side. And remember the T is going to be the floor number. So line up the T with the middle of the dot. You also need to poke out the T a little bit because right now it would be clipping into the wall. Move it out a little bit. I'd say that's a little bit okay for the size. You can change the scale if you'd like. It's all up to you. Now go back into our third person map. We're actually going to get our floor button, drag it over here. And now we're going to rotate it 90. All right. Let's go ahead and scale this down a little bit. So over here in the scale, it should be locked. Let's do 0.75. There we go. That works. What we're going to do, we're going to do that. Control C, Control V. Move it over here. Control C, Control V. You can do as many floors as you'd like. However, I'm going to do 6. Control C, Control V. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to select all of these and make sure that they have an index of 1. That way they're paired to this elevator. Just going to make sure these buttons as well are paired. They are. Okay. So now we need to choose the floors. So this first button here will be floor number 1 on the bottom right. This one here will be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're just going to save and press play. And now when we open the elevator door, you should see they're all assigned their own number. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up that elevator component. So anywhere here, you're just going to right click, blueprint class, actor component, name it BP underscore elevator component. We're going to open it up. Now you can delete the event tick here and just leave event begin play. Let's go ahead and open our door button blueprint and find this code here. If not, you can just do the exact same code. We're going to copy it here for our door button. Control C. We're going to delete it. You can delete the event, but you can play in the door button as well. Make sure it's the door button, not the floor button. File and save. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead over here to our component. And on the event begin play, we're going to paste it. Go ahead and delete this gray elevator array variable. Drag out. Promote to variable. Elevator array. File and save. So what we have done is we have created a component, and that's going to hold the array, and now every single actor now just has to call this component to get the array instead of drawing it themselves. This just makes it a little bit more neat and a little bit more nice. I'm sure it makes it a little bit more optimized. So now we're going to go into every single actor and add the components. So let's start with the door button. Over here on the top left, add. We're just going to type elevator. You should get an elevator component. Make sure it's not attached to anything and it's by itself. Should have the elevator component here. Now while we're here in our door button, we can see it calls an array that we aren't making anymore. So go ahead and delete this, as well as delete the component. Now all we have to do is drag out our component, drag out here and say get array, get elevator array. We're going to plug it into here, and then it will do the exact same thing as before. File and save. Now we need to do the same thing for both the elevator blueprint and the floor button blueprint. Let's go to floor button, event graph, delete the elevator array, delete the elevator array component, add a new component, the elevator component, grab the elevator component, get array, plug it into the array here, organize it a little bit. Now lastly, we just have to do it for the elevator. We already deleted the code here on the event begin play, so let's just find where we reference the array, which is going to be down here in our code, and it should be right here on the for each loop at the end of the code for the elevator in the event graph. So go ahead and delete it. Delete the elevator array, add a component, elevator component, drag it out, get array, plug it into here, organize it, file, save, and that should be that done. We can see if it works because our button would not be able to open the door if it wasn't getting the correct elevator from the array. So the fact that our button works means that our array is still working. Just a side note that it's a known bug that with the widget, if you play it in this viewport here, it won't show up. However, if you go and have it as its own independent viewport, it will show up. So it is working, and it will work in a packaged game. Just for whatever reason, you can encounter that bug. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to open our BP_elevator. And we're going to go to our function down here called getPlayerFloor. We're actually going to delete this. We don't need this anymore. Delete everything here. Let's go to our event graph and find where we reference getPlayerFloor, which is going to be here. We can actually delete current player floor. We can delete that. Go ahead and delete everything here except for the delay here at the end. And then we're going to delete our getPlayerFloor once again. Alright. Now with all that deleted, over here on the left side, we're going to delete current player floor. We are also going to delete floor to axis and get player floor. We should now only have teleport player. This is because we're going to handle all of our functions within the component. It makes it a lot easier to troubleshoot if something goes wrong, to know that all the code that could go wrong is in one place, which would be here. I don't like having code in two separate areas. It feels unnecessary. So back in here, we're going to actually open our teleport player function. We're going to copy absolutely everything that we have here except for the return nodes, the start and return nodes. So copy it. And then we're going to go to our elevator component. We're going to create a new function called teleport player to z axis. Alright. So within here, we're just going to paste. And then what we're going to do is we're going to plug this into here. Then at the end here, we're going to add a return. That into true. We're going to copy and paste here. Now we need a z-axis to plug into here. So what we're going to do is click into here and add an input. I'm going to call it z-axis. We're going to make it a float. We're going to plug it into our destination location Z, compile and save. Now head back to your elevator blueprint, and then we're actually just going to delete this entire teleport player function here. Now you no longer should have any functions under the construction script, and they shouldn't be called in here, because we're going to create the functions inside our elevator component. So now what we need to do, over here on event move floors, we're going to drag all these down here and make some room. So basically now that we have a teleport point in the elevators, we need to know what floor to teleport the elevator to. So we need to find event move floors. What we're going to do, we're going to go to our elevator interface, and that's where we find move floors. So over on the right side here, we're going to click move floors, and under input, we're going to click here, and we're going to add a new input. Our input here is going to be floor number, and that is going to be an integer. Now compile and save. We can close that. When we go back to our elevator blueprint, we should see that floor number is a new thing that we can pull out from here. So now that we have the ability to plug in a floor number, how are we going to actually get the floor number? Well, to do that, we need to go all the way back to our floor button blueprint. You'll see over here under move floors, it now requires a floor number. So what we're doing is for each loop, we're grabbing the elevator with the same index, and then we're going to send them to a specific floor number. If you remember, we set a floor number in each of the buttons. So like for example, this sends you to floor 6. So that means, back over in our floor button here, that means now they're choosing what elevator to interact with as well as what floor to send you to when that button is pressed. And that's all you have to do here. We can go ahead and close our floor button blueprint. We check something in the door button, make sure we don't have to do anything. Should be all good here. We can close our door button blueprint. Now back in our BP underscore elevator, now that we can get a floor number, we need to check something. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag out all this here, make some room, add a branch. Under false, we're going to plug it into this branch. And then under false, under this branch, we're going to plug it here. Now we're going to get a equal. So for floor number, we're going to plug it here. And under index, we're going to plug it here. Set this into here. Compile and save. Basically what this is saying is now they're checking what floor you're trying to send it to, and if it's the same index as the elevator you're in, then it knows that you cannot send yourself to the same floor you're on. So let's say you're in elevator 1 and you press floor 1, well, you're not going to go anywhere. But what we do want to do is we want to check over here on a branch. We want to check if the doors are closed. If they are not closed, then we're going to toggle the doors. Now basically what this is doing is it's checking, okay, well, we can't send them to that floor, but can we close the doors? So it'll close the doors for you even if you can't go to that floor. Go ahead and organize a little bit. File and save. Now let's check that out. Open the doors. Press 1. See? Now it won't actually send us anywhere, but it will close the doors for us. Only if the doors are open. Now we're going to fix the previous issue that we had in our last video, which is that you could move up an elevator and then drop down and go to another elevator, and the doors would be confused on if they should be open or not. And we're going to fix that right now, and what we're actually going to do is create a new function in our elevator component. So go to your elevator component. Under function, we're going to create a new one. We're going to call close open elevator doors. Now what we're going to do under here is we're actually going to do a for each loop. We're going to plug in our elevator array. And what we're going to do under array element, we're going to get doors closed. And what we're going to do is add a branch right here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go over here. We're going to do toggle doors. That's going to plug into the false. We're going to add a return node. As well as under completed. organize this around a little bit. Go. So what this is doing is it's basically finding every single elevator in the map that the doors are open, and then it'll close those doors if it finds any that are open. So now we're going to go back to our BP_elevator. Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to go right before this elevator moving here. We're going to move everything a little bit. Let's move everything a little bit back. Unplug, and then we're going to get our component down here, elevator component. We're going to close, open elevator doors. I might need to make some more room. There we go. Put it here. And we're just going to plug it in right here and on true. Go ahead and compile and save. Now that's that bug fixed. So basically, now we won't have that issue before where when you teleport to a new elevator, there's a chance that the doors will be flip-flopped. Now it'll correct that before you start moving. Now let's go back to our third-person map here at the top, and what we're going to do is we're just going to select everything within our elevator, and we're going to make a duplicate. That way we have several elevators now that we can teleport to. There we go. Control C, Control V. Make sure grid snap is on, because these do snap on top of each other. Like that. You can do this as many times as you like. I'm going to do 6. Alright. Now what we need is platforms to step up on and lights. What we're going to do is we're going to click add here. We're going to go to shapes, cube, drag it out right here. Go back over here and reset the material. And we're just going to scale it down, try and figure out the size. So what we're going to do over here, I'm going to unlock the scale. Over on Z, I'm going to do 0.1. Let's move it over here and let's do something like 5. A little bit too big. Let's do 3. That works. 3 on the Y as well. We're just going to move this out, move it up until it touches start there. There we go. Looks like it's even. You can leave it like that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to also get a point light. So add lights, point light. We're just going to set it up under here so you can actually see. All right. So now that's level. We're going to select both the point light and the plane. We're going to copy and paste, and we're going to move it up to the same spot over here. And we're just going to do that for all 6. All right. Save all. Now here comes the tedious part. We can leave the floor numbers here. They can stay exactly the same over here on floor number. However, we need to change the index of every floor to be 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's the only way it will work. This is the difficult part, because it's just a little tedious changing out. In the future, I'm sure I can figure out a way that they will automatically set their own index depending on if they're on top of another elevator, but for now, this is what we're going to deal with. So we're going to select this button here. We're going to change the index to 2. Select the elevator here. Select the index to 2. Select the red button here. Set the index to 2. Select every single green one by holding Shift, and then you can change the index to 2. Now just go ahead and do that for every single elevator. So every single thing in this elevator will be 3, this one will be 4, this one will be 5, this one will be 6. Once you've completed that, now viewing in the editor, when you take a step back, you should see all the floor numbers are assigned to the elevators. The door should still open and close. Back in our BP_elevator, what we have done so far is we have found what floor said you can't teleport to your own floor that you're already on, but we will close the doors. Now it's going to check, are the doors closed? If you can go to a new floor. If they aren't, they're going to close the door, and then they're going to close all other elevator doors that are open currently before we move. Set the elevator moving, start the sound, start the camera shake. At a delay of the elevator wait time, we now need to teleport. What we're going to do is grab our elevator component. Out of this, we're going to say teleport player to z-axis. However, we have come across an issue where now we don't know what z-axis to teleport the player to. All the way back here, we do have a floor number. However, we need to figure out, depending on what floor number you're going to, what z-axis that is. And that's why we had set up a teleport point in the other elevators, because now we're going to find the z-axis of those teleport points and set it here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to compile and save and go to our elevator component. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new function and call it floor to z-axis. And this is just going to serve as a method to convert a floor to a specific z-axis. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a input pin here. We're going to need a floor number. Go ahead and make that a integer. Now what we need to do is we need to do for each loop. Our elevator array is the array. What we're going to do is we're going to get index equal now we need to see if the index is equal to the floor number. Go ahead and add some pins to organize this. Go. All right. Now what we need to do is we need to add a branch. Not sure why my line is tweaking out there, but after that, what we need to do is we need to grab our array element and add a return node. Just add a return at the end here off of true. And what we're going to do is grab our array element, put it in here. We're going to name it elevator. So now we have what specific elevator we're going to be teleporting to. We can add some pins here just to make it a little bit more organized. Right. So now I actually forgot that we need to go back into our BP elevator and we need to name it. I had left mine named as cube for our teleport point by accident. We actually need to go back and rename it and name it player teleport point. Now compile and save. Now if we go back in our component, we can actually go here and do get player teleport point here at the bottom. That's what we need here. So now what we need to do is we need to get world location. We need to split the structure pin. And now on the Z, we need to return here and then name it floor Z axis. File and save. Now basically what we have done is off of a floor number, we have found an elevator with the same index as the floor number, and then under that elevator we have grabbed its teleport point, gotten a Z, and set that as the Z axis. So basically we're converting a floor number to where we're teleporting. And that is all we need here. Let's go ahead and head back to our BP underscore elevator here. Go to our event graph. Now in front of this delay here, we can go ahead and use our component here. So copy and paste. And we can get here floor to Z axis. Plug it in here. Plug this in here. Make a little bit of room because we're going to be dragging a pin out of there. Put the Z axis there. Now what we need is a floor number to make that work. So we can go ahead and head back here and grab our floor number right here. Let's go ahead and do that. All right. Add some pins to organize it. So there we go. File and save. Now what we can do is we just connect this up to the delay here. As you can see, we saved a bunch of space in here, moving it all to the component. We're just going to select all of this here. We're going to move it over here. You may need to reorganize some pins. So what I'm going to do is just select these two. And a quick tip, if you press Q with two selected, it'll level them out. I'm going to grab this pin and this pin, press Q to level them out. Now at the end here, you'll see that it's grabbing a for each loop with the elevator array, but we actually don't need any of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and delete everything but toggle doors. And we're going to move toggle doors over here and plug it in here. And now we need a target to toggle. We're going to go ahead and grab our elevator from earlier. We're going to plug it in here. Add some pins. All right, there we go. So compile and save. So now if we go ahead and press play here, go ahead and test out and see if it works. We're going to walk over to an elevator. We're going to open the door, get inside. So if we try to choose the floor we're on, it should just close the door but not actually send us anywhere. Yep. But if we choose a floor that we can actually go to, like 2, start the camera shake and the movement. Alright, and as you can see, we're on floor 2. Now let's try it again with floor 6. Alright, and now we're on floor 6. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close this out and show an issue that we need to fix. So basically, an issue is that we can still have the elevator move even if we aren't inside the elevator. So let's move this to 3 and leave. Start the shake and the head movement even though we aren't in it. It's going to teleport us, but we aren't actually there. The way we can fix that is we can do what elevators do in real life and add a tripwire, or a laser I mean, that whenever we try to leave the elevator while the doors are closing, the doors will just open and cancel the whole thing. We're going to go ahead and do that now. So what we're going to do is go to the top here on our toggle doors. We're going to right click here and do custom event, add custom event. And we're going to call it tripped doors. And by that I just mean like they tripped the door laser. And that's going to go ahead and plug in to this top set here as well. Because basically it's just bypassing the first branch and continuing here to close the door. Or open the door, I mean, if we trip the laser. So now, if we go all the way back down here, we can actually add a branch, connect it up here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add an AND Boolean, connect it up here. We're going to get our doors moving and doors closed. So right here, doors are moving. Doors are closed. Then what we're going to do is we're going to call our tripped doors untrue. And that's it. And when we press play, we should have that issue fixed. We open the doors, we'll see that our elevator is completely fine with that because they're not closing, they won't crush us. However, if we press to close the doors and we run through it, our doors will open because they realize that we've tripped it. So now, if I try to go to floor 2 and move through, it'll open the doors. But as you can see, it still does the same thing as before. So to fix this, we need to create a new variable. We need to name it tripped doors ? Once we name that variable, we're going to go over here to trip doors. After we trip the doors, we're going to set the trip doors to true. Then we're going to create a delay. The delay is the length of the door animation. My doors take 5 seconds to close, so it's going to be 5. And then we're going to set it to false. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move up a little bit here. We're going to find close, open elevator doors. And now what we're going to do is we're going to move the close, open elevator doors over here to behind the set. We just have to reorganize a little bit. We don't want the doors to close and the process to start unless we are for sure that it can start. Move this over here. Now let's make some room, drag some of this over here. We're gonna add a branch. Under false, it's gonna go to the set. The condition is the trip doors. Then we're just gonna plug in completed here and true here. Now we're just gonna compile and save. So after we do that, we need to actually go back to the beginning of the code here, to the OR, and add a pin. And we need to add trip doors, so that way we can't start closing the door unless that trip door timer is up. So compile and save. Now we're gonna press play. When we open our elevator door here, we can go through without it tripping, because it only trips when we leave. Now we're gonna press floor 2. We're gonna leave, it's gonna trip it. Now we have a trip timer, so we can't close the doors until that trip timer is up. If we leave again, it'll reset that trip timer. There we go. Floor 2. All right, now we're on floor 2. And again, we're gonna test out another bug. Before, if we left that elevator open and went to this one and went to floor 3, floor 2 would stay open. However, with that function we implemented in the elevator component, if we do this, it should recognize one of the elevator doors are open, and it will close it as soon as this door is finished closing. Alright, so now if we jump down, elevator 2 doors should be closed. Yep. Alright. And that part is completed. Alright, and that's this part completed. You can stop at this point if you like. However, in the next tutorials, we're going to be looking at automating what index it's on, so you don't have to do it by hand. It makes it a little less annoying. We're going to be automating that, and on top of that, we're going to look at level streaming, so that way teleporting to a certain elevator will unload and load different levels, so that way elevators will be your point to and from different levels.